This is AUGforums.com Real Talk. First, thank you to our sponsors, APS Payments, Kenzium, and DataSelf. Please take a minute to support this podcast by clicking each one of the sponsor banners located at augforums.com/sponsors. Every click helps to support this podcast. My name is Tim Rodman, and I'm coming to you live on Saturday, February 27th, 2021. This is episode number 41, Nathan Neuberg, from CTO at Cali Framing to consultant at PC Bennett, sharing his Acumatica journey. Nathan, thanks for coming on today, and I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, Tim. Thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here. I've heard so much about you and my Acumatica journey that I really wanted to do this with you. So thank you again for having me out. Yes, my name is Nathan Neuberg. I started working in the framing industry nearly 20 years ago. Recently working with Cali Framing, a manufacturing company out of Chatsworth, California. We build custom picture frames for businesses and retail. Came across Acumatica in the middle of 2019 and found a really exciting environment. I was fortunate enough to attend the 2019 R2 roadshow in Garden Grove and met some really great people and heard some really great things about a product that was growing, evolving, and a really solid platform on which to build our business further. We're operating on.
Before we dive into the Acumatica side a little more, I was curious if you could give us a little more on like your personal background through what you call the framing industry. You say picture frames, so this isn't like framing a house. Maybe just tell us a little bit more about the industry background that you came through.
Yeah, that's right. Fine art and framing. So we build custom picture frames for small businesses to medium businesses, and more recently, high-end fine art framing for museums and individual collectors. Well, we started as a distribution company, buying and selling materials for picture framing businesses and small mom and pop type shops. And then around 2008, 2010, when the economy really started to turn, we saw a lot of our customers were struggling with keeping business going and keeping their shops open. So we decided at that point to pivot and use our experience and knowledge in the industry to switch into a manufacturing role. And a lot of the customers that we had at the time were looking to close their doors, and you know, we came in and said, well, why would you want to do that? You do what you love doing, keep doing it, run the front of the shop, you know, keep your customers happy, but you don't need all the infrastructure and floor space to keep that going. We've got it. We can support you. And through somewhat of a partnership, everybody can stay afloat. And I think that really worked for us. We grew a very large, well, not very large, but our business grew at that point because rather than going from, you know, nickel and dime commodity margins, we went to somewhat of more of a skilled labor artisan business model, and that was definitely a different industry. But by doing that, we were able to grow through some mergers, acquisitions. We bought a couple of companies expanded our manufacturing operations with new equipment and new customers. And
so you're based in Southern California, and when you took on what you call the manufacturing side of it, did you do that all in Southern California, or did that cause you to expand out to other locations to do the actual building of the frames?
Yes, we do have customers nationwide, but building picture frames, you can imagine, they tend to be large and expensive to ship. So being on the West Coast, a lot of our business was with the hospitality industry in Las Vegas, doing hotel projects and things like that.
So pretty much everything is based in Southern California, your base of operation.
I would say the western half of the U.S. Yeah, when you go a little further than that, it gets expensive to ship truckloads and things like that. And there are some other companies that do some of the things that we do, but the way we've positioned ourselves recently, I don't think there's anybody in the nation that does everything we do. So yes, there is some business all across the nation.
So that pivot turned out well for you. You started growing, sounds like, and was it that growth that led to looking for an ERP system? And I'm also curious what you were running prior to Acumatica.
2019, we were on QuickBooks, enterprise version, but just QuickBooks. So for 10 years or so, that served us really well. We were able to get done what we needed to get done, despite ourselves. And we're able to, leverage that as much as possible. But by the time we started looking for an ERP, obviously our business model had changed a lot and felt like we were an elephant riding a tricycle. And we really needed some data to help us move into the next phase of our growth. So yes, at that point, we were looking for shop floor production reporting and better intelligence into our margins and other business data, so that we can make smart decisions going forward. Yeah, I heard about
that elephant. The elephant riding a tricycle analogy. That's a good one. What would you say was the main pain point? Was it that shop floor visibility in the manufacturing, or was there another main pain point that led you to look for a new solution?
Yeah, I would say that was a big part of it. And, we were, our industry, it's very labor intensive. And, one of our largest costs, and in any manufacturing industry business, is time. And we wanted to be able to report better, yes, on the shop floor costing, as well as provide better intelligence to our customers and insight into their orders and status of things. You can imagine that building thousands of frames a month, you've got insight into the business at any point in time, and basically a way to record everything. We needed that one version of the truth system of record. So we had, spreadsheets and emails and lots of little bits of data floating all over the place. And we really wanted to tie everything together. So we were looking for that ERP solution, something to graduate from our small business into, something that would provide the platform for growth going forward, because that's what we were looking to do. I think that there's a market for picture frames, and like I said, through other mergers and acquisitions in recent times, we've moved into more retail space, And we're looking at providing that customer insight and communication. So having that real-time visibility into the shop floor was the only way to get that. So we looked at a couple of solutions. And like I said, when I visited that roadshow in 2019, I was kind of blown away by the difference that Acumatica presents in this space. You know, we have somewhere around 50 employees. So user licensing was definitely a factor when we chose Acumatica, and the consumption-based model was something that we could leverage to get a number of devices on the floor, an unlimited number of users to get that individual efficiency reporting, so we can identify those tough spots, you know, where we're bleeding and don't know it, that we need to, you know, put Band-Aids on, and then, you know, where to water so that we can nurture that growth going forward. So yeah, what I found. Sorry, go ahead.
You mentioned 50 employees. If you can, what about a ballpark annual revenue for the company, just to give us an idea of size?
It's hard to say where we want to be, but I'd say that we've grown 200% in the last 2 years. So that we've grown 200% in the last 2 years. So
that's pretty good growth. Like maybe sitting around 10 to 20 million or something like that.
Not quite, but I think that we can get there quickly.
And the 50 employees, it sounds like you were expecting most of them to be on the ERP system. Maybe that's because of the labor-intensive nature and everyone needing to enter time into the system.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we were hoping for when we.
That makes sense.
When we started looking, and that's what made other solutions prohibitive, being user-based.
What other solutions were you looking at the time? You're sitting at the road show, taking in what Acumatica has to offer, and maybe what were you comparing it to in the back of your mind?
Oracle NetSuite at the time was NetSuite. We looked at Microsoft Dynamics, and between those top contenders, Acumatica really stood out as the differentiator in the market, and being 100% cloud-based and relatively affordable for us was the obvious choice.
You mentioned the consumption pricing. Was there anything else at that roadshow, or you might have already known that at the roadshow, but was there, if you think back to that pre-COVID roadshow, it'd be nice to go to one of those again. You know, is there anything that stood out to you that you learned there at the roadshow that you can recall?
Just that, yes, that Acumatica does position itself as a platform development, a technology company, and that their focus is on development and growth of that core product. And I could see already at that point how quickly things were developing and growing, their power to develop that, and the value-added reseller market and the culture is what I really learned about being there with those people. I met some really nice people, and the whole cooperative feel and culture in the Acumatica value-added reseller space was something that was very different than anything I'd ever seen in the software space. So and that's what really prompted me to look at that as a potential for my personal growth and my career future.
Well, I'll second that on the culture. I feel the same way. You also, though, mentioned the platform and being the CTO. I've heard that a lot, that Acumatica is very good at attracting the technology types, the CTO types. But I'm curious, in your situation, did you have a sell, but once you got convinced that was a good solution, was there a sell internally that you had to make to the finance folks or the operation folks? You know, being a CTO, you get the power of the platform, but were there others in the organization that, you know, maybe needed a little more convincing or needed to see more value in their areas?
Yeah, I think that that's a challenge that any techie faces, trying to bring the old school into the new school. But I think that it was a necessary evil, and we really needed to attack that from a technology space. You know, the world is changing, has been for some 10 years, 20 years. Everything going online, everything computerized. There's no more manual cars. You know, everything is just developing in that way. So I think that in general, it was an easy sell. But yeah, there was some convincing to do.
So you selected Acumatica, and you know, what did your implementation look like? How long did it take, and about when did you go live with the system?
Well, it was really our first full ERP system, so there was a lot of development to go from QuickBooks to a more robust solution like Acumatica. We started signed on at the end of 19, beginning of 2020, and we were fully operational before July. So it was about 6 months. So it was about 6 months, but there was a lot to do, like I said. So and a lot to learn.
So you had COVID in the middle of that.
Yeah, and
so oh, interesting.
Definitely a challenge, but being that everything is cloud-based, we were able to keep going. Thankfully, we were back at work faster than some other companies. You know, it was a challenge, like it is for anyone. But so far, Acumatica has definitely been a big help in making that challenge something we can meet and beat. You know, I think that the future's bright, and everybody's going to bounce back from this in one way or another. But yeah, we were able to live through that. And
other manufacturing companies, that actually the shutdown in the beginning helped them to focus on their implementation if they were in the middle of one. Was that your situation, or was it more disruption to the implementation?
No, it did give us the time that we needed to look at numbers, and not so much moving parts, but you know, the way they present on paper. And yeah, I think that the shutdown did help us focus. There was a lot to learn moving into an ERP system, and getting everybody on board at the same time. I would say that didn't make that part any easier.
Yeah, that part I could see being more challenging, not being able to have those tough conversations in person and make those tough decisions makes it more challenging, I'm sure. So when you went live, did you include the manufacturing piece in going live, or did you just go live with finance first and bring manufacturing in a couple months later? How did that roll out?
We started in a phased approach with finance first. Gave us a little more time to get everybody back in-house and working again, and a little bit comfortable with the system. And then, yes, manufacturing became phase 2.
So on the time reporting, you mentioned time reporting, that being an important piece for you. How did it actually play out when the rubber meets the road? You know, I know sometimes you have one impression in a demo, but for your company, what did that look like? Were people entering time in a computer workstation there in the shop, or was it more practical to just write time down on a piece of paper and have someone else enter it, or were you using a mobile device? What did that look like once you actually rolled it out?
Well, that's still a work in progress. And yes, we started with a small number of devices on the floor. We were using Chromebooks actually with USB barcode scanners to quickly pull up orders, and we had a few key players on the floor doing the reporting. But that's definitely still a work in progress. Seeing the development of the expense entry and other features in the mobile app is kind of what excited us about it. So we're looking forward to seeing what comes out of that and how that grows.
Yeah, I find it's always an area people hear about the mobile side and they maybe just assume they could do it all there, and then you get into it, especially in the manufacturing side, it might not quite be there yet. Or, they also don't think through the really practically getting someone who's got their hands dirty, or, maybe not building frames, maybe that's more in a heavier manufacturing environment, but still it's disruptive to your workflow to then go over and enter time. And so I'm always interested to learn more about how people do it. You mentioned Chromebooks, that sounds interesting. There's an advantage of a web-based ERP. You also mentioned barcodes. Maybe you could tell us, curious to dig into that. Maybe walk us through some of the specific screens you were barcoding on and how you use the barcodes to help with the data entry.
It really is just a matter of speeding up keying data. We didn't build any sort of customizations as yet. We printed the order numbers in barcode format so that the operators could pull up the orders that they were working on at the time without having to touch the keyboard. Just a human interface device kind of thing, where we would use a single line 2D barcode to enter order numbers.
And would they just stay parked on the labor entry screen all day and barcode right into that screen, or you could walk us through the Acumatica screens?
I wish I could, but that, like I said, when I left, was still a work in progress. So it's
gotcha.
Yeah,
no problem. I like geeking out on details, but no problem. But that's cool. I always like hearing barcodes. I think that it's so simple, but you have to put in the work to really not only think it through, but then get everyone doing it, right? Not only think it through, but then get everyone doing it, right? And there's a lot of advantages you can pick up by doing that.
Yeah, in my head, it all already works.
I experienced that a lot too. It's like you get on the whiteboard and you're like, you get it all worked out and you think, oh, we're done. And then it takes another 6 months to actually make it happen.
Yeah. So you've heard this story before. Yeah.
Yeah, I've lived this story before, I should say. Yeah, it's just, but I think that last mile, in my opinion, is really what separates a lot of times the successful companies from the not successful companies, right? You just have to go through that blood, sweat, and tears and overcome those so many times just emotional obstacles with employees. And, sometimes you have to use cookies to get things done, like real physical cookies, not computer cookies, not computer cookies. And once you do it, having that one system and having it actually being used, it's a huge advantage for sure.
Yeah, something that I have personally longed for. And that was the part that I had to sell. But I think that, once presentations got underway and the big dogs got to see what was going on under the hood a little bit, it made them hungry for it too.
So you mentioned the time reporting area, you didn't end up needing to do any customizations. Did you end up doing any customizations or any third-party ISV products as part of your implementation?
No, not yet. Hadn't needed to.
Not bad. And that makes sense. Coming off of QuickBooks, you've got a lot to bite off just getting Acumatica in place. Sometimes you can maybe bite off too much if you bring in other products as well, at least for the initial rollout.
Right. Yeah, we wanted to get comfortable with the core product. We could see capability there and how to leverage it. And like you said, coming off of QuickBooks, this was night and day for us already. So
then what about you personally? I mean, you were CTO at Cali Framing, and you are now consultant at PC Bennett. How did that come about, and what do things look like for you now?
Yeah, I for some time I had been considering a change into a more technological consulting role, and when I found Acumatica and its openness and potential, it really kind of lit my fire, and I started looking base and came across a recruiting firm called Dynexus, and I met a really nice guy named Julian Trenzel, and he introduced me to his program and how it works. And basically they provide partner training and certifications, a program that you can go through and get access to the Acumatica partner portal and read some of that documentation, learn about the suite life, and get exposed a little bit to the partner space. And through that program, which I think was really a great success for me, I was introduced to PC Bennett, and after talking with the folks there, it was really, I don't think I could have picked a better place to land. PC Bennett's got a great reputation. They're a strong player. And when I talked to Tim O'Sullivan on the phone, I think we connected immediately about, just on a personal level, about how we wanted to serve clients going forward and help businesses grow.
Curious on the education side of that. So you hooked up with Dynexus, and they're unique in that they can certify you before you even get a job, and that's one way you can show you're serious to people who are hiring Acumatica talent. I'm curious your personal experience. As far as I understand it, a customer has access to Acumatica University, partner has access to Acumatica University, and outside of me, I don't think the courses are any different between the two, but I think some customers think partners have access to all this extra stuff. But I'm curious, what was your experience going through that process? Did you find that there was a whole another area that you hadn't seen as a customer, or was it really the same as far as from Acumatica goes, the same educational content?
No, you're right for the most part. And I was already poking around the Open University. I think the difference is the certification certificates at the end, and that's really about it. All the information is there, and that's one of the coolest things about Acumatica is that if you want it, you can find it. It's very easy to learn. It's very user friendly, and in plain English. The Open University courses and the Acumatica Partner University courses are nearly identical. They just, in plain English. The Open University courses and the Acumatica Partner University courses are nearly identical. They just, change at the end when it comes to taking assessments.
Yeah, so the real meat of it is that giant PDF file that'll be a few hundred pages long for the course. But then the only thing you're missing that Dynexus was able to offer is that you can then take an exam at the end that gives you a certification that says you passed that particular course. Is that how it played out?
Yeah, basically. And after I had started, things are growing and changing. And I think there are now some quizzes that you can take at the end of the Open University courses to sort of test yourself, but they're not in any way official or certified by the company. So that was the main difference, and I think that was a key factor in my opportunity at PC Bennett. Like I said, I completed those first courses and showed that I was serious, and it's been a really great experience since then. There's no better way for me to learn than with hands-on, and in the month or so that I've been at PC Bennett, I think I've learned more than in the last 6 months on my own. So
That's great. I appreciate you walking through those details, because I think there's probably a number of people out there who are working in-house at a company. They really like the Acumatica product, but when you're in-house, there's only so much you get to do. Eventually you solve the main problems and you start getting pulled more into the day-to-day, and you don't get to do that fun stuff that you did during the implementation. And some people get the appetite for that like you did, and such a great way to not have to reboot, but just transfer over what you've picked up, the experience you've gained, get some official certifications for it to make you even more attractive to a VAR or whoever else is hiring Acumatica talent. And sounds like you've been through that process, and it went well for you, and you're enjoying what you do now.
yeah, it did, and I am. And like I said, I don't think I could have found a better fit than PC Bennett. Their focus on automotive is really something that was exciting to me, and just the whole culture of the company and how they present. It was really exactly what I was looking for.
So what have been some of the differences, maybe, or some of the things that have gone as expected versus maybe some surprises transitioning into the consulting role, things that maybe were easier than you thought, things that were harder than you thought? Maybe give that comparison for others who are considering making that transition. What's it been like for you moving from in-house into a consultant?
I would say no real surprises, but you have to really be a technical learner. You have to have the drive to solve the problem. You got to know that you're able to answer those questions, find the answers somewhat on your own. It's a great team that we've got. Working remotely is a huge challenge. So
yeah, and since you came on during the pandemic, have you even gotten to go up to, I think they're headquartered up in Seattle, is that right? Or is it mostly remote?
Yeah, near Seattle in North Bend. There's actually another office in Texas. And no, I haven't. Yeah, it has been tough, but nothing I didn't expect.
I've done that before myself. I've picked up a job and hadn't been there yet, and it's a little weird at first, but I think it's unfortunately right now probably more the norm than not when you transition jobs.
Yeah, and with the pandemic and everything, working from home has been something I've been settling into. There was a lot of remote work that we had to do in the implementation at Cali, and I carved out a space at home and turned up my internet speed and got a camera, and just like everybody was able to sort of sidestep into that. And it hasn't been impossible, but getting up every day and getting dressed and going to the office is something that I like doing. So even working from home, I still do it. I'm not working in my PJs, but so it does feel different, but not entirely unfamiliar.
That's a good, healthy routine. I try to do the same. If you just if you stay in your PJs, it affects your mood quite a bit.
Yeah, that too.
So what about looking forward for you? I mean, it sounds like you're really thrilled to be working at PC Bennett and doing the consultant role. Like, what are the areas you're looking to get into more, or what's the future look like for you there?
Yeah, I really am enjoying it. At this point, I'm sort of getting my feet wet still, wading through support and training under some other senior consultants there. I'm really looking forward to learning training under some other senior consultants there. I'm really looking forward to working with more implementations. I think that, learning about businesses and listening to clients about how they work and what they do, and then, helping find the best solution for that is something I am not only suited for, but excited about. And so I think that Acumatica is a great solution it's a great fit for many businesses, maybe not for everybody, but I think that with the expansion into other versions with the field service and construction, as well as, like you said, the integration with ISVs and extensibility of the platform, that open API architecture that they've sort of whole thing on makes it so flexible. PC Bennett has an add-on product called Auto Fitment Plus that helps automotive resellers find the right parts and the fitment for various vehicles, so that you can be sure to ship the right product the first time, reducing those costs with returns and bad shipments. So that's something that I'm very much looking forward to. I love cars, and when I read about that on their website, I knew that I was barking up the right tree.
I like that. Yeah, you said a couple things there. You mentioned that you like the automotive focus. You also used what I think is the perfect word to describe working. You've got to have that drive and that passion to be able to keep going as a consultant. And I can really hear that there. You've got the passion about the product, about the company you're working for, and you've got that self-motivation and drive to keep moving forward and keep learning new things. Maybe you could tell us what you know so far. Sounds like you still need to get into it more, maybe. But I've heard about PC Bennett's automotive focus, and do you know what is it for? Just part resellers, like I walk into an AutoZone or a Pet Boys, or is it something more specialized than that?
Yeah, mostly. From what I know, and like you said, I do have more to learn, but it integrates with various databases and pulls information for your vehicle based on the VIN. So an automotive reseller, you can walk into an auto seller, you can walk into an auto shop, or Pep Boys or an AutoZone, and the like, and the people behind the desk there can plug in the VIN on your car, and it automatically pulls up all the parts that they stock that will fit. So when you need those very specific parts for your model year, if they're going to fit before you buy them.
Interesting. Oh, that's cool. That's very cool. Yeah, I like how VARs are able to go into a vertical like that with Acumatica because of the flexibility of the platform. They can build a solution inside of Acumatica that's a first-class citizen, of course, without modifying the source code, but they can really build out their own IP and become experts in the vertical. I've seen a number of VARs do that, including PC Bennett in the automotive space. And attractive thing about Acumatica, just because of the power of the framework and how you can build things in it.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. PC Bennett's got a great team with a development department. That Auto Fitment Plus is just one of the products. They've also got we've got a shipping container management, and payroll is where everything kind of really blew up. That Acumatica now integrates payroll in the core product, but that was something that PC Bennett was doing years before, and actually through somewhat of a partnership between PC Bennett and Acumatica, was able to roll that in to the core product now. So you're right, having the openness of not our product now. So you're right, having the openness of knowledge base and other resources, it really makes that integration possible where other competitors in the ERP space just don't offer anything like that.
Yeah, I'll second that. I mean, that openness is across the board. It's not just the technology side with the framework, and it's not open source, but it's pretty close to it, right? In terms of how deep you can go into things and make changes. But then that openness really goes across, like you mentioned, the Acumatica University. I think a lot of customers feel like partners have access to more stuff than they do. They really don't. It's very open, transparent, it's free. There's another area where other ERP products try to make education side. And then just the openness of the community in general. And I think what you found there at that roadshow you went to, open is a big part of, I think, Acumatica's success and getting people excited about it. And in your case, even getting people to change their career path a little bit to be able to work with the product more. And I think that's really cool.
It was so attractive to me. That whole, not just between the VARs, value-added resellers that are in the space, but between those third parties and Acumatica directly, the accessibility is second to none.
And I think it's an important point even for potential customers to consider, in that, when you're bringing on a product, it's not just a product for your organization, it's a product for your people, right? And I think the right product like Acumatica attracts people to organizations. Now, in your case at Cali Framing, you're no longer at Cali Framing, so maybe that could scare an organization. Oh, we don't want to lose people to then become consultants. But I think the majority of the time it flows the other direction, in that if you're staying on an old legacy product, you get people who leave your organization because they're not building skills that are relevant for the future, right? And I think actually most of it flows the other direction, where some people are going to leave, maybe become consultants like you've done, and that's a good thing. Then their shoes get filled by someone else who's also excited about the product and will stay at the organization longer because they're working with something that's actually building relevant skills for them, right? And I think that's an important point that a lot of organizations don't consider when they're selecting a new ERP system. But at least in my case, and I think in your case as well, it's an important point that you want to be working with a product that you feel is benefiting you personally, not just the organization.
Yes, absolutely. And if you don't grow, then you die. That's just the way it is. Time doesn't stand still. So the more I see businesses not rolling with the punches and adapting and growing, they get left behind. So yeah, like you said, having Acumatica at the core of your business will attract the talent. If you build it, they will come.
I agree. I very much agree. Well, hey, Nathan, thanks for coming on, and especially doing this on a Saturday morning. You might be in the PJs for this one. Thanks for coming on. And anything else you want to bring up here before we wrap things up?
No, just want to thank you for the opportunity. I think you're doing great things in the space. And, I had heard a lot about you before I even decided to move into my next phase in career, and you've been a big help in that too. So thank you for your interest, and thank you for the invitation and the opportunity.
Happy. It's always a good feeling to know that what you're doing is benefiting others, and I'm sure you're experiencing that now as on the consultant side. Just a good feeling, right? To be doing something that other people benefit from, client work or whatever type of work you're doing. Yeah. So yeah, thanks for saying that. All right, well, I'll let you get back to the kids here on Saturday, and thanks again for coming on.
Thank you too.
All right, well, that's it for now. We'll catch you on the next episode of augforums.com Real Talk.